Assembly Manual for LH6SA Harvester. Assembly Instructions. Ensure the working area is clean, spacious, level, and dry to facilitate the installation process. Make sure all personnel involved in the installation have received proper training and guidance. Prepare appropriate personal protective equipment, PPE, such as safety helmets, protective gloves, and safety shoes, to ensure personal safety during installation. Prepare the required installation tools, such as wrenches, screwdrivers, and lifting equipment, and ensure all tools are in good condition, reliable, and compliant with safety standards. In case of any questions or issues, please contact Sinomac Heavy Industry for technical support and guidance. Assembly Steps. Step 1. Install the cab and control system. The fuel tank is located at the rear of the harvester. Fill it with approximately 30 liters of diesel. For convenient operation of the harvester during packaging and transportation, 3 temporary control levers are installed. Gear shift lever has 5 positions: travel, neutral, fast harvest, neutral, harvest. Travel lever has 3 positions: forward, stop, reverse. Steering lever, push left for left turn, push right for right turn. Turn on the power switch, climb onto the harvester, and sit on the temporary seat. Move the gear shift lever to the far left, travel, position. Move the travel lever to the middle, stop, position. Connect the wiring harness plug at this location. Turn the key switch to start the engine. Move the travel lever to the left to drive the machine forward. Use the steering lever to adjust the machine's direction, left or right, and move it to the installation position. Return the lever to the stop position and shut off the engine. Remove the 3 temporary control levers. Unfasten the wire harness ties and disconnect the wiring harness plug of the starter key switch. Disconnect the wiring harness plug of the central electrical control box. Remove 2 mounting bolts of the control valve and take off the temporary bracket. Remove 6 bolts and take off the left cover plate of the cab. Inside the cab, on the left side and at the front end of the gear shift lever, install the starter key switch. Below the gear shift lever, install the central electrical control box and fasten it with 4 bolts. Lift the cab, paying attention to distinguish the functions of the rods and cables at the bottom. From left to right, threshing lever, header cable, grain unloading cable, throttle cable, engine stop cable, hand brake cable, header lift lever, left/right steering levers. Move the cab above the installation position and remove the 2 front connecting bolts. Take out the air conditioning compressor from inside the cab. Disconnect 3 hoses: the steering cylinder hose, the hydraulic oil filter hose, and the oil pump inlet hose. Pass the compressor underneath the other hose that remains on the steering cylinder and place it to one side. Connect the filter hose and steering cylinder hose, tighten them, then install the oil pump inlet hose and fasten the clamp. Mark the corresponding positions and disconnect the 7 hoses from the control valve. Install the control valve onto the frame at the bottom of the cab and tighten 2 bolts. Operate the crane to lower the cab. Pass 2 elbow hoses through the bottom and connect them to the hose fittings on the right side of the control valve, then tighten. Connect the 2 limit cables for the cab tilting function, insert the pins, and install cotter pins to prevent loosening. Check and confirm the 6 connection points between the bottom of the cab and the harvester frame. Adjust the cab so that it is directly above the frame connection points. Place the header cable on the left side of the cab, and route the unloading cable toward the rear of the cab. Align the two locating pins on the frame and slowly lower the cab. Fine-tune the crane to ensure the bolts at the two front connection points are smoothly inserted. Remove the grain tank baffle, remove one bolt from the grain tank, loosen the belt, and pull out the grain tank. Connect the two bolts at the rear of the cab, tighten the bolts, and then tighten the two bolts at the front of the cab. Install the other 5 hydraulic pipes of the control valve. Install the grain unloading cable at the rear of the cab. Hook the tension spring to the tensioning arm and attach the other end of the spring to the grain unloading cable wire. On the bracket, lock and secure the two nuts that fasten the cable. Place the belt over the top of the tension pulley. Install the air pre-cleaner and fasten 4 bolts. Next, first organize the electrical wiring harness inside the cab. Note, the 2 red wires are power supply lines and will need to be connected to the battery positive terminal later. Then organize the electrical wiring harness outside the cab. Leave these 2 wires temporarily outside the cab. Pay attention to the 3 connectors they are attached to. Route the other wiring harnesses from outside the cab through the round hole at the bottom of the cab and into the cab interior. Hold the lower part of the panel with your left hand, lift the latch handle with your right hand, and remove the red panel at this position. Locate the 2 red power supply wires of the cab circuit and pass them out through the round hole. Then move to the area above the battery and guide the power wires downward from the engine area. To make cable routing easier, temporarily remove the 2 fuses on the power wires. After connecting the power wires to the battery positive terminal, reinstall the fuses. Using a creeper board, enter the bottom of the harvester and pass the power wires through the pipeline bracket, routing them toward the battery. At the wiring harness connection area on the left side of the cab, disconnect this harness connector. Install the 2 fuses onto the power wires and close the fuse box cover. Connect the ground wire from the wiring harness inside the cab to this connection point. Route the ground wire from inside the cab through the round hole and toward the rear of the cab. Below the engine starter motor, use a bolt to fasten the ground wire. Then connect each connector on the wiring harness one by one. Connect the 2 rods located below the gear shift lever and travel lever. Guide the 2 remaining wires into the cab from the rear of the cab. Connect the 8-pin connector to the wiring harness connector at the rear right of the cab. Connect the 4-pin connector with its matching connector. Connect the light gray crimp type connector with the 3 bare wires, red, black, and white. Insert each wire end into the corresponding slot according to color. On the left side of the cab, connect the wiring for the two sensors, distinguishing by the wire colors shown in the diagram. At the rear left side of the cab, connect the purple-black connector of this harness. Arrange the wiring harness neatly and secure it with cable ties. Install the belt, adjust the position of the air conditioning compressor, and connect the wiring. Install the compressor's positioning bolts, and use the front and rear bolts on the bracket to adjust pulley alignment and belt tension to the optimal state. Arrange the wiring harness neatly again and fasten with cable ties. Connect the two red power supply wires from the cab to the positive terminal of the battery and tighten the connecting bolts. Install the pins between the control valve lever and the operating rods, then insert cotter pins to prevent them from coming loose. Move the gear shift lever and travel lever forward and backward to check the feel of their detent positions. If the positions are unclear, adjust by tightening or loosening the nuts until all lever positions are distinct and precise. Then tighten all lock nuts. Install the side cover plate and fasten 6 bolts. Start the engine, operate the lever to raise the conveyor trough, and install the cylinder lock. Install the header cable under the conveyor trough. Loosen the nut on the screw rod, pass the cable through the pipeline bracket, guide it out from under the pulley, and install it onto the cable bracket. Attach the tension spring at the tension pulley and connect it to the cable. Adjust the lock nut on the cable to ensure proper belt tension during operation, then tighten the nut. Install the rod assembly for the threshing operation lever. If the pull plate of the tension pulley falls off, reinstall it as shown in the operation diagram. Connect the pull plate, rod, and spring. Secure the rod and pull plate with a nut. Operate the lever to confirm proper belt tension, then tighten the lock nut on the rod. Install the throttle cable and engine stop cable. Install the hand brake cable. At the same time, install the right side cover plate and boarding step of the cab, fastening 8 bolts. Inside the cab, install the 2 cover panels and fasten 17 bolts. Step 2. Assemble the header and connect it with the conveyor trough. Install the cantilever beam on the header frame. Pay attention to the 4 connection points, where upper and lower half bushings must be installed, then mount the pressure plates. Use pins, washers, and cotter pins to mount the cantilever beam onto the 2 cylinders. Loosen the fixing bolts of the narrow tensioning sprocket. Remove the chain connecting pin, install the chain. Move the narrow tensioning sprocket to tighten the chain, and then tighten the fixing bolts. Install the 2 divider connector plates, distinguish between left and right, and tighten 20 bolts. Install the right side knife guard frame and tighten 2 bolts. Install the center cover plate and tighten 2 bolts. Loosen the pressure plate bolts of the cantilever beam, install the left and right reflectors, and tighten 4 bolts. Install the 2 crop dividers, distinguish between left and right, and tighten 8 bolts. Install the crop guiding rod on the left side of the header frame. Turn the adjusting nut to compress the spring. After moving the guiding rod up and down to the desired height, tighten the lock nut. Place the intermediate shaft on the mounting frame and install the left wheel disc. Pay attention to the alignment of the locating holes between the two parts, make sure they are not misaligned. Insert the bolts, and tighten 8 bolts. Install the right wheel disc, different in appearance from the left wheel disc. Pay attention to the alignment of the locating holes between the two parts, make sure they are not misaligned. Insert the bolts, and tighten 8 bolts. Install the left support on the left cantilever beam. And insert the pin and cotter pin into the 4th locating hole. The 3rd locating hole is used in on-site assembly. Remove the upper guard bracket from the right cantilever beam and install the right support. Insert the pin and cotter pin into the 4th locating hole. The 3rd locating hole is used in on-site assembly. Remove the pressure plate and the upper half of the nylon bearing seat. Hang the secondary wheel on the intermediate shaft and install the intermediate shaft onto the cantilever beam. On the right support, install the nylon bearing seat and pressure plate, and tighten 2 bolts. On the left support, add a large washer and tighten the positioning bolt. Remove the crop divider holders from the 3 wheel discs. Pay attention to the differences among the 5 crop dividers. Install the first crop divider with the spring teeth facing forward and the narrow teeth on the left side. Mount the crop divider holder, paying attention to the installation order of the 2 support plates, and fasten it to the left wheel disc with 2 bolts. On the inner side of the right side of the crop divider, mount the crop divider holder. 2 bolts pass through the 2 support plates and the holder, and fasten into the threaded holes of the right wheel disc. At the same time, on the outer side of the crop divider, connect it to the secondary wheel. 2 bolts pass through the 2 support plates and the holder, and fasten into the threaded holes of the secondary wheel. Support the first crop divider with a brace and install the next crop divider. For the second crop divider, orient the spring teeth forward and the narrow teeth on the right side. Install it onto the left and right wheel discs in the same connection method as the first crop divider. Then connect it to the secondary wheel. Install the third crop divider, with the same structure as the first crop divider, and connect it to the secondary wheel. Install the fourth crop divider, with the same structure as the second crop divider, and connect it to the secondary wheel. Install the fifth crop divider, with the same structure as the first crop divider, and connect it to the secondary wheel. Rotate the wheel discs and tighten all bolts. The secondary wheel rotates around the central adjustment plate. To facilitate installation, first loosen the lock nuts on the 3 bearings of the adjustment plate. Remove the positioning bolts, install the adjustment plate, cover with the clamp plate, fasten the bolts, and then reinstall the positioning bolts. Following the installation order shown in the diagram, tighten the 8 bolts in this area one by one. Install the driven pulley of the crop divider on the right end of the intermediate shaft and tighten 4 bolts. Remove the pin from one end of the tensioning screw, place the spring on the screw, insert it into the support shaft, and then install the positioning screw's pin and cotter pin. Following the winding method shown in the diagram, loosen the spring adjustment nut and install the crop divider drive belt SC114. Then rotate the nut to adjust the belt tension to the proper level. Install the upper guard bracket and tighten 2 bolts. Remove the connection bolts between the header and the conveyor trough and release the cylinder lock of the header lift cylinder. Start the engine, lower the conveyor trough, and slowly move the machine toward the header. With personnel assistance, fit the header onto the conveyor trough connection point. Lift the header and lock the header lift cylinder. Install the connection bolts, connect the hydraulic hoses of the cantilever beam cylinder, and connect the power wires for the work lights. Remove the spring adjustment nut of the conveyor trough chain tensioning bracket. Remove the chain connecting pin, install the chain onto the header speed reduction sprocket, and reconnect it. Rotate the spring adjustment nut to gradually tighten the chain. Use a wrench to rotate the input shaft and check the chain tension. Then adjust the nut to achieve the optimal chain tension. Some bolt holes on the header may be slightly misaligned. In this case, use the crane to adjust the header's vertical and horizontal angles so the bolts can be smoothly threaded. Finally, tighten the 7 bolts connecting the header to the conveyor trough. Release the header lift cylinder lock. Start the engine and lower the cantilever beam to its lowest position. Rotate the wheel discs. By adjusting the bolts on the adjustment plate, set a proper gap between the crop divider spring teeth and the cutter, ensuring the wheel discs can rotate smoothly. Finally, tighten the adjustment bolts. After lifting the header, shut off the engine and install the cylinder lock. Install the upper and lower guard panels of the header and tighten 9 bolts. Install the conveyor chain cover and tighten 4 bolts. Install the front cab panel and tighten 3 bolts. Install the grain unloading belt LH6SA. Tighten the single fixing bolt of the grain tank. Install the grain unloading guard and tighten 3 handle bolts. Install the handle on the outer side panel and tighten 2 bolts. Install the front lower guard and front upper guard, tightening 1 bolt. Install the rear plate of the straw cutter. Step 3. Install the grain unloading auger. Use 2 lifting ropes to hoist the grain unloading auger as shown in the diagram and move it above the screw auger. Rotate the screw auger so that the flat angle of its head aligns with the flat direction of the screw gear inside the grain unloading auger. Slowly lower the grain unloading auger, adjust the position of the lifting ropes, and shake the auger slightly to ensure it is fully in place. Prepare the lift cylinder and connect the plug of the limit control circuit. Install the bracket, placing the wiring and hoses inside the bracket, and tighten the bolts connecting the grain unloading auger. Place the limit bracket at the bottom of the cylinder, ensuring the bracket is positioned above the lever of the limiter. Place a nylon washer on each side of the cylinder base, insert the pin, and install the cotter pin. Install the top rod of the cylinder piston. During this process, move the grain unloading auger up and down to facilitate installation. Finally, install the cotter pin on the top rod. Start the engine, wait 5 seconds, then press and hold the calibration button until the light flashes, then release the button. Operate the grain unloading lever, and test the movement of the grain unloading auger in all directions. Inspection and test drive. Release the header lift cylinder lock and observe the data on the monitor. Test all movements of the header. Drive the harvester and test its forward, backward, left, and right movements. Ensure that the harvester has been fully and correctly assembled.